Hi, Life Point family. It's Daron and Melissa Pitts. Thanks for joining us on day 2 of the Redemption Road, the Final Steps devotional series.
Today we're going to look at one of the events that took place in Mark 11 on the Monday of Holy Week. Mark begins in verse 15 by saying, "When they arrived back in Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple." But before we go on, we're just going to set the scene a little bit. To understand what Jesus is doing here, it's helpful to have some basic knowledge of the temple layout.
Yeah, so during that time, it was called Herod's Temple. And really, the temple building was right in the middle. And that's where the priests offered sacrifices. They did incense. That's where the Holy of Holies was. All of that. That was like in the middle of the temple complex. But then around it, there were courtyards. And the biggest courtyard was the courtyard of the Gentiles. And like 10 football fields. So imagine just a massive place where people could be, the Gentiles could come in. That's the place of the Gentiles. They couldn't go into the temple area. That's where they would worship. They could hear the word some. They could pray and really connect with God there. And that's where Jesus overturned the tables. And the scripture talks about earlier in Mark that Jesus, after came in on the donkey in the triumphal entry, he went into the temple and observed, but because it was late, he and his disciples went out, to Bethany to spend the night. But then the very first thing he did when he came into the city again was to go back into the temple.
Yeah. So there are some things that he observed that day. He saw that the complex was being used as a bypass because there were nearly 2 million visitors that would come for Passover. They would use that huge 10 football field court area to bypass and avoid going through the city streets because of the crowds. And he did not like that.
Second thing he saw was obviously money changers. It talks about him overturning their tables, and they were there for a purpose because people would be traveling from out of town. They would need their money exchanged. But in this case, I'm sure there was a lot of them, but also kind of the assumption is that they were charging exorbitant amounts of money to exchange money. So what should have been very small, they were charging huge fees, and so they were abusing the people there in that way.
Mm-hmm. The next thing he saw, of course, is lots and lots of livestock. There would be stall after stall of animals, most likely lambs, lots of lambs and doves. Most people traveled to Jerusalem. They didn't bring their own animal with them, but they were charging exorbitant amounts. Think Disneyland soda prices.
Any food or really anything there. Yeah. So, and I think they estimated 250,000 lambs were sacrificed as well. So there was a lot of animals that were going on.
Yep.
And on top of that, I think the fourth thing maybe he saw was just chaos, noisy chaos with animals, with merchants shouting to sell their stuff, with pilgrims going through. Not a quiet place for the Gentiles or for the Jewish people to be able to contemplate, to connect with God, to worship and things like that. So in some ways it'd be like a county fair and the stock exchange all rolled up into one. So to be certain, Jesus saw a lot of things that he didn't like. And he saw it on Sunday, but then he came back on Monday, and that's really when he addressed it.
So Mark records the following in chapter 11, verse 15, thank you. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "It is not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations,' but you have made it a den of robbers."
So this is the side of Jesus we don't often see. Right? We see in this time only a few times in Scripture that he actually gets upset, or what you would say is angry. And almost every time it's because it's preventing other people from being able to connect with him and be able to worship with him. And that's anchored in the fact that God is a jealous God. Like he wants to connect with us, and he wants to remove all obstacles from us being able to connect with him in that way. And so where the temple was supposed to be a place of worship, prayer, teaching, it actually became the opposite. It was loud, it was smelly, it was a crowded marketplace, preventing people from that true connection. And so Jesus did something about it.
So on this Holy Monday, I think this could be a parallel for our own journey. If Jesus were taking some observations of our own lives, what would he observe? Are there priorities that need overturning, distractions that need to be set aside, hurts that need to be forgiven, motives that need to be changed, or habits that need to be driven out?
You see today, just like in the first century, Jesus doesn't want anything to hinder us from being able to connect with him. And while he won't physically overturn tables in our own lives, his heart for us is the same. He is jealous for you. He's jealous for me. His heart, he wants to connect with us. And so today, let's meditate on this question. What is one thing that Jesus wants to clear out of your life?
God bless you.
God bless you guys.